Hello, Tyka Southeast. My name is Tom Geary, and I'll discuss today a practice that has been labeled by Peter Elbow as never fair and undermining learning, by Kathy Davidson as meaningless and superficial, and even as racist and white supremacist by Asao Inoue. Grading is an oft-criticized aspect of college instruction that perpetuates a deficit model as students receive letter grades with feedback highlighting errors. In response, some have shifted to a practice known as ungrading. Known by various terms like going gradeless, abolishing grading, or even utilizing labor-based grading contracts, ungrading is designed to center student learning and, according to Jesse Stommel, dismantle traditional and standardized approaches to assessment. I found in my experimental foray into this alternative form of evaluation that a grade-free classroom defies student expectations and complicates their learning process rather than simplifying it. I also found it's not easy, but it might be worth it. Many students enter a traditional English classroom designed to address their perceived weaknesses. Often writing faculty unintentionally perpetuate this deficit model that students can earn A's if they just work harder at improving their correctness. Assigning letter grades, a practice that was not even in widespread usage until the 1940s, according to Shinsky and Tanner, is simply another antiquated approach to composition instruction that does not support our 21st century learners. Critics of grading have provided a wide range of reasons to call the practice into question. Davidson writes, top-down learning or grading by the prof turns learning into a crass competition. That's the opposite of learning and curiosity. Inoue contends that it's harmful to students of color. He adds, grading was a barrier when I would tell a multilingual student or a working class white student that her writing was interesting and moving, but the C grade seemed to say something else. Grades kept him from having a real exchange. Other stimuli for abandoning grading include student motivation and growth. Alfie Kohn writes that grades diminish students' interest in whatever they're learning as their attention turns to the score. Then thinking has been severely compromised. Ungrading allows a student more agency in the process and allows them to take risks, or as Amy Lynch-Biniak writes, to be messy, to fail, to dive deeply. It gives students the opportunity to explore their emerging scholarly voices instead of meeting arbitrary goals and deadlines. My own attempt to transition to ungrading was well-intentioned but poorly implemented. I'd set out at the start of the fall semester to design a contract with my students with clear expectations. I thought that doing so at the onset would ensure buy-in. I showed students a sample grading contract inspired by Inoue, and that would help inform our own document. And I noted that I would transparently communicate with them about their progress as writers. What I had not anticipated, however, was an immediate resistance and a lack of engagement. With students already facing difficulties adapting to being in synchronous Zoom sessions and understanding how to navigate our learning management system, I bailed on the attempt and resorted back to traditional grading. This spring semester, I again introduced students to the concept of ungrading and provided them with a survey to gauge their interest. Of the 116 students taking my first year courses who were sent a 3-question survey, 94 responded. The majority were opposed to ungrading. Their reasoning varied from feeling already disconnected to increased anxiety that there'd be more work for us to decipher in the class. One student, noting the initial impact of the pandemic a year ago, argued that an ungraded class would feel like spring 2020 all over again. The most common reason was the preference for receiving grades as motivation. One student writes, "No way, I would like to know my letter grade." Another wrote, "I don't feel like I'd be motivated to do the essay if it's not for a grade." There was more support for the shift than I had anticipated, but despite a few strong endorsements, most of the commentary for the transition was qualified with uncertainty. Students wrote, "Some could benefit from ungrading," or "It might be cool, but I'm hesitant." Though I returned to grades in both semesters, I could take solace in knowing that others have similar experiences. Lynch-Biniak, who also expressed caving in and giving grades again in an early attempt, is now all in with ungrading, though she notes, "I still have so much work to do." To make ungrading successful, adopters advocate close attention to course design, ample descriptive feedback, and reflection or revision. Colleen Flaherty writes, "Most ungrading processes are highly structured, so it's not just flipping a switch." Going forward, I'll re-envision my classroom as one that eases the student into ungrading. Most importantly, I will not return to a deficit approach. I know what my students can do, and they do not need grades to get them there.